the establishment of a national gender-based violence and femicide response fund. The recommendations and implementation plan in the Technical Working Group report are financially and contextually unrealistic. They assume consistent funding levels that no government of Kenya has ever committed to providing to survivors or victims of any crimes or injustices, even when required by court orders. This assumption is at odds with the report itself, which observes that gender-based violence prevention and response programs rely heavily on short-term donor funding, as both the national and county governments consistently allocate them minimal funds. The report proposes the establishment of a national gender-based violence and femicide response fund by the 30th of September 2026. However, Kenya's legal system already includes the Victim Protection Trust Fund, created by Sections 27 to 30 of the Victim Protection Act 2014. This trust fund is supposed to support the provision of welfare and support services to victims and survivors of crimes. That is, any person who suffers injury, loss, or damage because of a crime. The welfare and support services envisioned by the Victim Protection Act include services that support victims to deal with physical injury and emotional trauma, access and participate in the criminal justice process, receive reparation and compensation, and cope with problems associated with victimization. Most acts that constitute violence against women and girls are already recognized as crimes. For instance, the Penal Code already recognizes physical assault, murder, and attempted murder as offenses. Similarly, the Sexual Offenses Act criminalizes rape, attempted rape, and gang rape of children and adults, as well as other sexual offenses. However, 12 years after the enactment of the Victim Protection Act, the government has failed to make the Victim Protection Trust Fund operational for victims of crimes, including crimes that amount to gender-based violence and violence against women and girls. The most recent Auditor General's report found that 32.3 million shillings was allocated to the Victim Protection Trust Fund for the financial year beginning July 2023 and ending June 2024. But it is unclear what this money was used for, as the Office of the Attorney General failed to account for it. The Technical Working Group report acknowledges that the government is yet to operationalize the Victim Protection Trust Fund, but does not query or explain why this issue has persisted for 12 years. It also does not query or demand accountability for the unaccounted for funds that were allocated to the trust fund in financial year 2023-2024. Instead, the report rushes to establish a new additional fund that will essentially have the same function. This recommendation presumes that the absence of a fund is the issue, and not the government's commitment to corruption and disregard for the citizenry, including, but not limited to, victims of gender-based violence. This is evidenced by the challenges we have seen with the Victim Protection Trust Fund.